Hello and welcome back to another episode. If you want to do what? Today I've got Matt Chick on, and he's the founder of Chick Digital. Hi, Matt.
Hiya.
How are we today on this lovely Monday?
Yeah, very well, thanks.
Good, good. Matt, do you want to jump straight in and tell everyone a bit about what you do?
Yeah, so I run a digital studio, as you said, called Chick Digital. And we make bespoke websites and web apps for businesses.
Okay, very cool. So, how did you sort of get into this whole world then of software and website building?
Um, it's a fairly long story, so I'll try to keep it fairly brief. But I guess the short version is completely by accident. So I did business studies when I went to university, and I did a year out, and a year out for placement, and I was a data analyst for that year. And I actually found I quite like working with numbers and computers, and there's a lot of number crunching, and I guess what you'd now sort of call end user programming, so doing stuff in Excel. And I yeah, I found I had a real knack for it. And then I finished university, and I got a job with a local company who were a furniture manufacturer. Actually, they quite a big one. They employed about 300 people when I started, and they were looking for someone to do their IT. So they sent me on a they I did a master's for a few years alongside my day job, and then I sort of got to the point where I got sort of fairly good with the IT side and started doing a bit of programming. And then I picked up stuff on the side as sort of side projects. Unfortunately, I guess that mainly started about 2008 and nine, because the company I was working for was quite hard hit by the recession.
Hmm.
And yeah, and then so I went on a 4 day week. So I picked up extra work then, and it kind of grew from then until it became a full-time job. And then I started taking on staff to help me, and it's kind of not looked back since then.
Wow, what a great story to come out of sort of, having to go down to a 4 day week to building your own business. That's a really cool story. Was that ever sort of in your mind one day you might want to be a business owner?
Yeah, I've always sort of quite fancied the idea of running a business. Not necessarily, anything. Not necessarily in software, just sort of like the idea of having your own business and something you can kind of build. So yeah, it kind of I guess I kind of guided myself in that way. And when opportunities came up to grow it out from being just a freelancer, I kind of jumped at the opportunities. So yeah, it was kind of half planned that that's what I wanted to do, but it wasn't a kind of a master plan to get there.
Sure. And can you break down what Chick Digital does a bit more? So you mentioned websites and software development. What kind of things have you guys worked on?
I mean, it's really broad. So we work with a number. It was mainly B2B stuff, and it's mainly, I guess, what you'd call websites and web applications. So we've kind of got one of our key clients is a company called TWC, and we work very closely with them and have done for a number of years. And I guess in essence, we're their kind of outsourced development house, and we so with that we build a lot of sort of reporting tools. So they basically work in the wholesale industry, and they get data feeds from different wholesalers, and we work with them to turn those into sort of intuitive dashboards. Um, so that's sort of one end, but we've also done a lot of things that we've done some kind of extra net sites with people like Green King. We do a bit of support and maintenance on the Gay Times website, and there's lots of other sort of projects that we've got involved in over the years. I guess we tend to do things that are a little bit more complicated. So we don't do the kind of the Wix kind of WordPress kind of sites. People tend to come to us when they want something that has more functionality than that and some degree of bespoke development. And we try to bring together user experience and user centric design with sort of clever business solutions.
I mean, it sounds great. It's an industry that just keeps on growing, right?
Yeah, I mean, even since I've been doing it, it's changed so much. That's one of the great things about it is all of the time you're using different technologies. So I guess when I first started, it was, very. I mean, I guess I was probably fairly. I guess 10 years ago, it's probably slightly longer if I'm honest with myself that I've been doing it for. But yeah, I guess then mobile had only really just started becoming a thing. So since then, sort of the explosion in devices and the ways people interact with them is just you're learning something new every day. And it's just a fascinating to sort of see things that weren't possible are now actually fairly achievable. And yeah, I think that's one of the things that I really enjoy about it is that you never go very long without learning something new.
I know it is. I just find it really interesting that whole world of building software or websites. It's just something that every single business requires needs in some form. So if somebody's thinking of going into this maybe after having left university or school, have you got any advice for them as to maybe something they should be looking at learning or some experience they could gain?
Yeah, I mean, I think I mean, there's loads of. I mean, one of the things that we do is we, along with some other sort of local businesses, run a meetup group. And that's a really good way of sort of getting to meet other people in the industry and sort of learning stuff there where you get people. So we'll have two talks so it's called Culture Digital, and we'll have two talks in an evening. And that will run through we've done stuff like SEO, we've done coding, we've done design, but that's a really good way to sort of start getting a feel for the kind of things that you like. I guess it's also interesting. I guess probably the starting point for anybody is to kind of look at what is it within software development that really interests them, because there's so many facets to it. I mean, me personally, I tend to work more towards, I guess, what you call like the back end roles, so the business logic, the data manipulation, storage. Whereas we've got people that work with us who do the front end stuff and the kind of the moving parts that people see on the front end. And I guess that's probably a really good place for someone to start to sort of work out which is it that they prefer the challenge of producing something that looks good and tactile, or actually doing the sort of the number crunching, the logic and the problem solving. And obviously there's an overlap between the two, but
I think that's actually a really good point as well, just to jump in on that, is that, correct me if I'm wrong here,
mm,
but there is actually a place for somebody who's more sort of aesthetically designed, sort of driven, opposed to somebody who's heavily code driven, right? You need both of those aspects. And I think people think about website development and sort of software development as, oh, I must be super good at coding. I've got to understand these really complex languages. But there's also room for sort of the creative side as well, isn't there?
oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, to be fair, I completely steer clear of the creative side because that isn't just my bag. And we've got people that we employ that do it a lot better than me. But yeah, it's a completely different mindset as well, because a lot of the creative stuff, particularly now with the different device sizes and actually the challenges um, are more aesthetic, like you say, and it's more about how can you bring a design, make sure that design works on these different devices, and it's more that sort of eye for detail and eye for the sort of flair of making a design feel really, design come to life. So yeah, you definitely don't have to be, have an A in maths or anything like that. You really, it's just gravitate towards the bit that you enjoy. and the bit that you feel that you're good at. And I know lots of designers now. I mean, more and more there's a crossover between like the design, the software that people use for designing, and the software that people, that can that use for developing, because the design tools like XD, Azure, they can give out such detailed information about how you then go and build that. It's actually, you don't have to be an expert really to start having a go with bringing your designs to life. And there's definitely a place. I think as time's gone on, originally I think that the sort of job role of they call them like a full stack developer, so you do a bit of everything, has become less and less, because really the skills involved in bringing a design to life are completely different than the skills involved in securing the database. It's kind of pointless trying to pretend that any one person can just gravitate towards the bits that actually excite you.
Yeah, and I definitely it makes sense, and I think that's we've heard that a few times actually. The kind of full stack developer role is kind of starting to disappear a bit because, like you say, there's so many bits you have to specialize in that are genuinely a full time job now. It's difficult to find that kind of initial role. Maybe if you go into business, like you said sort of earlier, and you're at entry level, you can kind of shadow or look at all these different areas to find one you want to go into, but you kind of need to specialize at this point, don't you?
I think so. I mean, I do know some people that do full stack still, and I guess they tend to do smaller projects, but I guess all of it. Whereas, I would say if your ambition is to work on really cool projects, and to build the kind of experiences that people love on the web. I think you will end up specializing in a smaller subset of skills. Just like you say, just because it's very difficult to be a full stack developer, and I don't think you'll ever fulfill your potential as a developer if you don't do at least some degree of specializing, because I think it'll hold you back.
Mm.
But it's not, there isn't a place for it, and I know lots of people that do it, but I guess they tend to build a website and do the design, the development, the hosting, the all of that. And if you enjoy that, then yeah, it's definitely a role. But if you certainly want to get into like the web applications and actually building things that move and are interactive, you probably do need to sort of specialize in a particular skill set or skill sets.
Sure. And for anyone listening to this, obviously you're a business owner, you own all these companies that's actually doing this work. How do you feel about CVs? Now, we ask this question a lot because it's changing so much at the moment. Now, being handed an A4 piece of paper as a CV, especially for a kind of role that you guys probably advertise all the time, that's not quite cutting it at the moment, is it? You need to have something more like, you need to be able to show maybe a GitHub or, look at my LinkedIn, here's some projects I've worked on, just something a bit more than a CV. Is that fair?
Yeah, it certainly can help if you can bring examples of the work that you've done. I guess we tend to be slightly different with our recruitment approach. We've tried to do a lot of stuff where we've recruited via our networks. So the Colchester Digital stuff that we do, we've met great developers through that, and we kind of stay close to them, and then I guess catch up with them when we're looking for somebody new. So I think networking can help, and but experience and a strong portfolio doesn't hurt at all. And I think it doesn't have to be. I mean, we've had some people coming for some junior roles who've had some really impressive portfolios, but I don't think you have to do too much work to get something that's that impressive. So if you're looking to get a first job, or potentially move from being a junior to middleweight developer, it could easily be a sort of a project that you've worked on maybe over a couple of weekends or a couple of evenings to something that you enjoy and are passionate about, just to show what you're capable of. So and really, as a developer, you do actually spend quite a lot of your spare time messing about with code and computing and stuff like that, because really, to stay up to date with stuff, you kind of need to. And so I think it's potentially, when you're doing those kind of side projects, it's just having a little bit of a think about how this potentially could work as part of your application process, and maybe look to build something that you think will grab people's attention if you include it as a project on your CV.
Mm. Now, when we've spoken to a few other people in this kind of industry, we usually ask, what kind of personality traits do you think help somebody to succeed in the industry? And we always get a very sort of similar answer. Number one is being really curious, just having a curious nature, oh, how does that work? How does this work? And problem solving. Is there anything else you would add to that? Or do you think they're kind of the two real crucial things you need to be a good developer?
Yeah, I mean, they're certainly key. I think to be a good developer, I think communication's really key. It's probably one that people don't necessarily think that developers use, and it might not always be verbal communication, but a lot of when you're building software and building and solving problems, if you're not asking the right questions and you're not going back to kind of to have conversations again with the stakeholders that have the challenges, you're probably not going to fully understand their requirements, and then that in turn leads to you delivering something that might be a brilliant piece of code but just doesn't actually fit their needs. And obviously, in larger companies, you have different people, you have different whose role will be purely the liaising with the customer part. But even then, as a developer, you'll need to be liaising with those people to make sure they're asking the end users the right questions. So I think communication is a key one. One that doesn't always come naturally, but if it's one I think people should make sure that they're aware of, and potentially look at how they could improve that, because I've generally found that the best programmers tend to be the best communicators.
That's a good point. And for you, what's been the biggest positive of this whole journey so far, starting a business and working in this type of industry?
I to be fair, the thing I really like is getting to work with so many different businesses. Obviously I did a business degree, and I really enjoy just getting close to different teams and different businesses, understanding what their challenges are and kind of helping them to solve them. So that's the bit I love. I love the fact that every day you get to speak to new and different people and see new and different challenges. That's my favorite thing.
And on the flip side of that, maybe something that's been less favorable or maybe negative about working in the industry.
Everything's been perfect. No, I mean, one of the challenges always is the fact that whenever you're doing something technical, there's not necessarily always right and wrong answers, and the challenge can sometimes be when people are looking for certainty, when there isn't a certainty you can provide. If you're trying to solve a problem that no one's solved before, being able to estimate exactly how long that's going to take, both from a commercial perspective, but also from sort of managing clients' expectations perspective, that can be challenging. And that's, I guess, probably that's the bit that I probably find hardest is finding ways of managing, giving the clients the understanding of the process, so that they're aware of the bits that we're quite certain about, but also, flagging up where some of the risks might come in. So if you're working on a project with a tight timeline, I'm always quite keen to, if you like, have potentially sort of 2 or 3 different options. So if, for example, the problem we're trying to solve turns out to be too complex for that timeline, it's then what can we deliver without necessarily delivering everything we wanted, but still helping the business to move forward.
And would you still go into this industry knowing everything you know now?
Yeah, I think I would. Yeah, I mean, obviously, like you said, it's full of its pros and cons, but I just really enjoy the fact of learning something new every day, and I hope to keep on doing that. I think it's a great industry to work in, and it's really nice how many like the peer network within like developers and the digital community. It's there isn't too much, if you like, competitiveness. It's people all kind of want to learn off each other and wants to see each other do well. So I think there's a real sense of camaraderie within the industry. I feel certainly with the ones I've been involved with, of people understand that to become a good developer and to become good in digital and takes time, and everyone's happy to share their opinions and their advice and their thoughts.
Well, Matt, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you and learning all about your business. Where can people find you and your business?
So you can find us at chickdigital.co.uk. So that's CHICK digital.co.uk. Or you can find me on LinkedIn as Matt Chick.
Brilliant. Thank you for your time, Matt.
Fantastic. No, it's been a pleasure.